Hello and welcome into Snapshot, your place for all news, history, and just chatting about quad ball. My name is Jackson. We have two very special guests coming on to the show today, Ryan Thomas from Rutgers and Ojas Turekar from Boom Train. They're going to break down Howard County and Champaign respectively. Super grateful for them to come on the show and very excited for you guys to hear all of our thoughts. Without further ado, let's get into the interviews. All right, and now welcome into the show, Ojas Turekar from Boom Train and Ryan Thomas from Rutgers. Guys, go ahead and say hello.
Hey
guys.
Jackson, thank you for having us.
Thank you for having us,
Yeah,
Jackson.
thank you guys for coming on. Yeah, thank you. So we're going to go through Howard County and Champaign County, and we're just going to go through our predictions, some general questions, and just general previews for the event. So we're going to start with Howard County, given that that is coming up this weekend. So Ryan, I want to start with you. First of all, the pools have been published. Pool A, there's 13 teams attending. Who do you see? I don't know if you have the pools pulled up right now, but I can read them out to you if not. Who do you think are the top contenders, and who do you have maybe as the top teams in each group?
So looking at it, at least for Pool 1, as unbiased as I can be, I do think Rutgers is going to take the 1 seed for Pool 1. I think Brandeis, Case Western, Vermont, and Brown, they're all phenomenal teams. They all have great talent. But given that we've seen a lot of these teams in MQC meets in the past and how those games have went, I do think I would say Rutgers is the favorite to take the lead in that pool. That being said, us as a team, we do still have to play well. We have to make sure we're making the right choices on the field. So I think Rutgers will take spot number 1. Between the other 4 teams in Pool 1, I think either Brandeis or Case Western would take that 2 or 3 slot. And then between Brown and Vermont, the 4 and 5.
Yeah, I think I agree. I think from my eye test and from most people would agree that Rutgers is probably the top team out. I think if there was any team that was going to pull an upset, maybe it's a Crucio, just because I think they have a high upside. But I think Rutgers has looked very good this year, and that's a testament to y'all. Y'all have a good team. But I also want to shout out Brandeis, because I believe they had an upset over, was it Harvard at one of the last MQC meets?
At the MQC meet, I do think so. Yeah.
I think Brandeis is a team to watch out for. Is there any players on any of those teams that you think are big X factors?
I know on Brandeis, they have Matan Schwartz and Oren Weinstein. I know those are phenomenal players for Brandeis. I had the privilege to play with them over the summer for MLQ. So knowing their upsides and their strengths, I think they're great captains for Brandeis, and I'm looking forward to playing against them this weekend.
Yeah, they've definitely been names. Go ahead.
Oh, sorry, go ahead.
No, you're good.
I was going to say, honorable mention, great shot for Brandeis. I think they're still there. Ryan Callahan at Beater. Oh my God, watching them over the summer, they are phenomenal. Super excited to see them. Also, another shout out from Rutgers, Jalen Brooks. I think they're still there.
Mm-hmm. I think so, yes.
They are a very electric player. Had the fortune to play against them this summer for next gen. Yeah, super excited to watch them.
Yeah, I think, and Pool A is going to be interesting because there are 5 teams, which I'll go over the format really quick. Each team is going to play 4 pool play games, which works well in Pool A because there's 5 teams, so you'll play each team in your group once. For Pool B and Pool C, all the teams will play every game in their group to get you to 3 games, and then 1 cross-play game. So every team in Pool B will play 1 team in Pool C. So it's a little different than what we typically see, but I think this is the best that they could do with 13 teams. Speaking of Pool B, I think there's a runaway favorite in this one, but Ryan, what do you think?
I think you're right, and I think we're both talking about UVA. Granted, they have been the number 1 team in the country for a very long time, so I think they're going to take that 1 slot. Between the other 3 teams, I'm interested to watch. I think RPI is going to pull away with the 2 seed, and then I haven't been able to see much of Middlebury or Pitt play, but I think those 2 teams will be between the 3 and the 4.
Yeah, I think that's right. I think there's no question that Virginia should be stomping everyone in this group. They haven't even really played close against their highest tier opponents, And that's no disrespect to RPI. I think RPI is a good second tier team. But I just don't think that they're really going to be able to do much against the Cavaliers. I think Pittsburgh can be a sneaky team just because they've pulled a couple upsets in both Rust Belt and App 5 tournaments. So I'm interested if there was an upset that was going to happen in this group, I'd say Pittsburgh over RPI is possible. But I think I agree. I think RPI is probably the number 2 team in this group.
Yeah, I would also agree with that. I think UVA clear favorites going into this weekend and for nationals maybe. Would not be a controversial thing to say that. What I'm curious about is UVA, unless there is a tournament that I'm missing, will go into nationals with I would say not that much competition as last year, if you remember,
Mm.
because there was a Creighton tournament against UVA, and then Texas State either traveled to Creighton or Creighton traveled to Texas State, but there was a lot more insights into what was going to be happening at nationals. What makes this year exciting is regionals and nationals. It'll be interesting to see how these cross division rivals match up. But yeah, really excited to see UVA. Uh, I think Pitt could be a really sneaky team. They have been doing well in the App 5, as you've said. But yeah, also Middlebury coming off a D2 win. Let's see
Mhm.
what they can pull off this year. I mean, can't never count them out. They are, I think, correct me if I'm wrong, the winningest team in the history of quad ball.
I think that is technically correct. They do, on a technicality, have the most championships tied with UT, UT Texas.
Mhm.
So I think that's correct. Um, yeah, I think Virginia. I like what you said about maybe a lack of competition. I would say teams like Rutgers were able to give them a run in Harvard, and I think those were good tests for them. But right, they haven't played a Creighton or a Texas State, or even say like an Illinois or a Sam Houston, who are other teams that most people would have in their top 10. But we do see a Harvard at this tournament. Rutgers again. Boston has been very good. So if they match up with those teams in bracket play per se, I think Virginia is probably still the favorite, but maybe there's a chance that we see a little bit more of an interesting matchup. Speaking of Boston and Harvard, we're going to get the privilege of seeing that in Pool C. Um, Typically, Boston has had Harvard's number for I'd say the majority of this year. Harvard has beaten Boston, I think, at least once this year. Ryan, correct me if I'm wrong on that. But who do you have going into this weekend? Who do you think comes out of Pool C?
Out of Pool C, like you said, I think it's going to be very close. I think that Boston Harvard game is going to be very important,
Yeah,
especially because of how the seeding is going to work and how that's going to end up setting up the bracket for day two. But I think Boston pulls away with this one again. I think from the last times that we played Boston and Harvard, I think Boston is going to have a slight edge. It really depends on if Harvard's able to get their beater play and their chaser play synced back up because they've had a lot of opportunities that I've noticed where if they talk and work with their beaters, they can get clean looks, but that just hasn't been the case as far as I've noticed. So I think if they can get that together, I think they have a very solid shot.
yeah. And then for Emerson and Triangle, I know there hasn't been a lot of gameplay with either of these teams. I think Emerson has probably played more than Triangle. Emerson's a team that Um, I think always looks like they have upset potential and they can just never finish the job. But they're a team that I think has the ability to punch upward. Maybe a Harvard or a Boston is a little bit too far above them. But I think Emerson, like especially in bracket play, how do you feel about Emerson's ability to maybe cause an upset in bracket play? Maybe take down a team or two?
I definitely wouldn't put it past them. I think they're a great team, but I just haven't been able to watch as much as Emerson as I would have liked to this year, given that at most MQC meets we're playing games at the same time. So
Sure. Yeah, and that makes sense. I think either way, I think you're right. Boston and Harvard have looked like the most complete teams out of Pool C. Certainly, I'd expect them to be the top two from the group.
Mhm. Emerson also has some of my favorite players to watch at the collegiate level. A really big fan of Ryan Leary. Their shooting is awesome. I really hope they're still in college. I haven't kept up with the East Coast as much as I would like to. Also, Amiri Silla, I think they play for Emerson. They're
That
also
sounds
a great shot. Very athletic, very jukey, great player to watch.
Yeah, I think Pool C definitely gonna be, I would say probably the tightest one. Pool A, just by the fact of having 5 teams, I think Rutgers, Crucio, and Brandeis could be, um, maybe the group of death, but I think Pool C is probably gonna be the toughest one. I think Harvard and Boston's probably gonna be one of the best games in pool play, and I don't think Emerson's an easy out for either of those teams. It sounds like we all have similar predictions for how the stand is gonna shake out. If that's the case, I was looking at the bracket play, um, how the bracket is going to shape out. Um, how this would figure. So in bracket play, I'm having it on the screen right now. But if you're one of the top 2 teams in the groups, you go into the upper bracket. Um, and I don't know if y'all are looking at the public schedule.
I haven't pulled up.
Okay, good. So and I have it on the screen as well. So if you're the winner of Pool A, or if you're the winner of this first place crossover matchup between B and C, those teams automatically earn a D1 bid. So by my count, we would probably have Rutgers as the first place team in Pool A, earning a D1 bid. And then I'm assuming we would all have Virginia beating whoever comes out of Pool C.
Hmm.
I could agree with
So
that. Yeah.
Yeah.
probably Rutgers and Virginia. I think what's more interesting is these other matchups, these crossover matchups, which for me, if I did my math right, would be Boston RPI in one of the matchups, then Crucio versus Harvard in the other matchup. What do y'all think of those matchups, and who do you think would pull out those games?
Oh, that is actually really interesting you said that because my hot take for someone who watches, not as much East ball as Ryan does, I would say this would be my hot take. I think Harvard will upset Boston to come out as the one seed of the
Oh,
C. So I think I'm a really big fan of Ethan Sturm's coaching. I think I think Harvard has always looked like, as Ryan said, they could cause an upset. I think this is where they will finally do it. It is going to be a far shot, but I think it's one worth taking.
sure. Yeah, I could definitely see
But
that.
yeah,
If that's the
I
case,
think
then if that's the case, then Harvard RPI would be that matchup. Let's play in that reality. Who would you have between Harvard and RPI in that semifinal? Would you have Harvard riding that momentum, or do you think you would ride with RPI?
I think if Harvard does take that one seed, I think they do ride that momentum and win that game against RPI.
I would agree.
I think that's probably true. If we're operating under the assumption that uh, Harvard is firing all cylinders this weekend, I think they'll be able to handle an RPI team that has given them trouble in the past, but I think definitely a good enough team to take down RPI. And if that's the case, I think what would it be? Boston versus Crucio, I think is a very interesting matchup. A little bit of cross regionality there. Who do y'all think would take home that matchup if that played out?
That's a great question. Me personally, I do think Boston would win that matchup as well, especially given their chasers. They have Zach, they have Evan. Those are phenomenal chasers. They're
Yeah.
scoring machines. And I haven't been able to see as much of Case Western, but if Boston is able to play at their pace, I do think Boston wins that game.
I do agree. I did forget about Zach Donofrio. Oh my God, what an electric player! But I think Boston will take that matchup. But I think it will be a close one, which will be determined by the flag runner game.
Hmm. Okay, good shout. I don't know the Seekers off the top of my head from teams, but I know that Boston's been pretty good at catching the flag. Ryan, am I correct about that?
I would agree. Yeah, they've been pretty good.
So if that's the case and it does come down to the flag runner game, then maybe Boston have the edge. I think for Case Western specifically, Titus Chan, if he can have a takeover game, then it's certainly possible. I do worry if Case Western would be relying on him too much to be the focal point of their offense. And if Boston can just shut down Titus, then not to say that Crucio doesn't have other options, but I wonder if the whole thing falls apart if Titus isn't as much of a factor. Overall, I think you're right. I think Boston has a little bit more going for them.
Yeah.
In the lower bracket, then we're looking at teams like it'd be. We're not going to go through the whole thing because it'd be hard to figure out all the matchups. But you're looking at teams like Harvard, we said Harvard moved on. Sorry, like Crucio, like RPI, Brandeis, even a Pittsburgh or a Brown. We need 2 bids from those teams. Who do y'all think could get those bids from this lower bracket?
I would say, I think if
Oh, sorry.
RPI and Case Western fall out of that upper bracket, I think those are probably 2 of the favorites to get those remaining 2 D1 bids, given just the level of play of those teams compared to the rest of what that bracket might be. I think those 2 teams would be the favorite.
Yeah, I would tend to agree. However, I do think because only one of Boston and Harvard would make it to the upper bracket if I did my math correctly. Please correct me if I'm wrong. I think whoever does not end up making it through the upper bracket will definitely get one through the lower bracket.
Yeah.
And then between Case Western and uh, Case Western and oh my god, I can out right now. Between Case Western
RPI?
and RPI, yes. Between Case Western and RPI will be like the last one.
Yeah, I think we all agree. Probably Virginia, Rutgers, Boston, Harvard are probably a solid top 4, and then you're thinking a Case Western and RPI, maybe even a Brandeis could pull something out. I think another interesting question to ask is it's also important who wins the bracket because that matters for seeding at nationals. So of our top 4, let's say, or maybe top 3, depending on Harvard, Boston, but Virginia, Rutgers, Harvard, Boston. Ryan, I know it's going to be hard to not be completely unbiased, but is there anyone can give Virginia a run, or is this really UVA's tournament to lose?
I think if anyone gives Virginia, it would be either Rutgers or BU. Watching Harvard and Rutgers play against UVA at Oktoberfest, it showed a lot of tendencies of both teams. And I do think, honestly, I would give Harvard a solid shot as well. I don't want to put them past it. But it really does depend on if everybody on each team is playing their best and if everybody's playing in sync with their beaters. And it really just depends on the level of quad ball each game or each team plays that day.
For sure. I also think UVA really plays like a lot of teams to the level of their opponent. And if somebody like a Rutgers or a Boston can catch them off guard, it is there is a chance of upset. But I would agree with you, Jackson, where I think it will be UVA's tournament to lose.
I think it's so hard for me to imagine anyone else coming out on top because I look at last year's nationals, last year's finals specifically, where Virginia went down, what was it, 10-0, I think at the start of that game, 10-1. Creighton was destroying them. And then Virginia came all the way back, I think made it tie game. It was only a 2-point game, or maybe it was golden goal at the end. I don't really remember, but I know it was really close at the end. And that was against the champions, against Creighton, a team who many people thought should have won 2 or 3 college titles in the past couple years, only now just getting over the hump. And I think this Virginia team is better than last year's. Um, I think it's really hard for me to see anyone else coming out on top. I think you're right, Ryan. If it's going to be anyone, it's going to be a Rutgers or a Boston, a team that has multiple ways to beat their opponents. Somebody one dimensional is not going to beat Virginia, in my personal opinion. But right, if you have multiple scoring options as well as high level beater play, and it's going to take exactly what you're saying, Ryan. It's going to take a full effort from everyone on that day in order to pull an upset. And I think it's going to take an off day from Virginia, but certainly it's possible.
Yeah, I think the key to beating Virginia is going to be uh, somehow keeping up with their beaters because I think Virginia chasers can be kept up with. But I mean, no disrespect to Virginia chasers, y'all are great. Uh, but I think if they pull out the beater duo of Joey Bay and Rakovitz, that could be deadly. It would be very interesting to see if they do pull it out, and if they do, how teams counter it.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's probably right, Virginia, but I think Virginia is beatable. Have they lost a game this year?
I don't believe so.
I don't remember. I don't think they have either. Um, well, anyway, so for us, we're saying it's going to be um, Virginia winning it probably over Rutgers, maybe Boston or Harvard, but Virginia certainly in the final, probably winning it is what we're going to go for. Awesome. Last question on Howard County before we move on to Champaign. Is there any dark horse mid-tier team that you would say, and we've probably touched on it a few times while talking about all the teams, but who do you think is the most dark horse team that people aren't looking out for, but that could be the surprise team of the weekend?
I think I'm going to say Pitt. I
Okay.
think Pitt has played all year in a tougher conference where they constantly go against teams like UVA. It is going to be tough to judge how they go up against other teams, but I think just that much, pressure and rigor has pushed them, and it's less so of a dark horse team, a team that I would love to see, pull an upset.
My personal opinion, I would honestly say RPI. I know they don't have a very deep roster. They don't have a lot of people on that roster for regionals and nationals. But if they can manage their cardio and if they can win the day in terms of being able to manage their players and how much effort and energy they'll have, I think they can make some great runs.
Yeah, and if I had to shout out one more, I'd shout out Brandeis one more time. Had an upset over Harvard, I believe, recently. Had the upset over RPI as well. Um, a team that I think if they pulled a couple of upsets, people may not be ready for it, but I think it's one that can definitely happen. Awesome. So there's our Howard County prediction. We're going with Virginia to win it. Rutgers, Boston, Harvard, definitely getting bids. Maybe a mixture of Case Western, Brandeis, and who's the other one? RPI in the mix as well for those last two slots. Let's move on to Champaign County. This is going to be the weekend of March 7th and March 8th in Illinois. I believe this venue has been used maybe 3 years in a row. I feel like it's been quite a few times in the last number of years.
Yeah, I think this is the third year in a row that it's uh, in Champaign County.
Yeah. And this is what I believe will be the biggest regional of all of them. It looks like, by my math, 18 teams, it looks like, across college and club, maybe upwards of 20. There is a lot of quad ball that's going to be played here. Let's start with the college game since we were talking about college teams in Howard County. There's a lot of big name teams here. Now, Ojas, do you know off the top of your head how many bids there are in the college division?
I could be wrong. I think there are four bids for D1, and I think a couple for D2, and then the rest are going to be made at large. I can look it up somewhere, hopefully.
That
I am
sounds right
on
to
you.
me. As I think that sounds right. I think it was 4 club and 4 college. Um, and then we don't know the format yet for this college team, so it looks like there's 9 teams here. and where there's going to be some kind of pool play, of course, and then bracket play after. Who do you expect to be probably the top teams in pool play, or who do you think is going to be those teams that probably won't lose a game until bracket play?
If I had to pick, I would assume there would be two two brackets or two groups for pool play for college, and I would assume one of them would be won by Creighton, and the other one being as unbiased as possible. I think U of I should be pretty comfortable in winning those. However, I do think Blue Jays have always been the arch nemesis for Illini,
Mm,
and I'd be very surprised if Creighton and Blue Jay end up in the same pool. So I think Blue Jay could give Illini a run for their
sure.
money.
Yeah, is there anything to be said? We have not seen a lot from Blue Jay this year. I want to say one, maybe two tournaments max. Is there anything to be said about that? Do they just not have the numbers this year, or is it a travel thing? Is there anything to be said that we've seen Illinois look good on a number of occasions, and sure we know that Blue Jay is probably the best B team of any, which there's not many of those, but Blue Jays a top 10 team in their own right, or certainly top 10 caliber. Do you think Illinois might just win on the back of getting more reps, being more ready?
Certainly. I think the only tournament where we got to see Blue Jays was Trick or Beat, but there was also a tournament where a couple of the starters of Creighton were playing on Blue Jays, so I wouldn't really count those as Blue Jays. I'm
Yeah.
also familiar with Creighton's recruiting game, which, oh my God, they gotta reveal those secrets. But I think the Creighton program is known for recruiting really athletic folks.
Sure.
And while there might be some new faces on Blue Jays, I would expect them to punch. I would expect them to punch above their weight class. I think it'll be interesting to see them. At the end of the day, being biased as I am, I think Illini should get the final laugh over them. But it will certainly be an interesting game to watch.
Yeah. If it happens that those two are in the same group, Blue Jay Illini is probably going to be a must-watch game. Looking down the board a little bit, maybe into that next tier, I want to shout out Michigan and Michigan State. Michigan State is a team that I would say has one of the highest variances in all of college quad ball. Uh, Low floor but high ceiling. A team that I wouldn't be shocked if they made even a quarterfinal run at nationals, but I also wouldn't be shocked if they went 1-2 in groups and flamed out. Which Michigan State team do you think we're going to get in a couple weeks?
I think Michigan State is going to be a very interesting team. Also, I have rumor mill has it they might be combining with another team that I might not be allowed to say.
Interesting.
But I think the biggest weakness for Michigan State has always been their low numbers. They are a small numbered but very mighty team. As you correctly said, Jackson, they have a very high ceiling. They are very capable of, challenging an Illini or a Blue Jays to, a close game until they run out of fresh legs. However, if they're able to get that numbers advantage, I think now something interesting might happen.
Yeah, that's interesting, and I won't make you share that, of course, especially if that's not public knowledge. But if that's true and one of their biggest weaknesses has been taken away, then yeah, maybe Michigan State is a team that can rise above the rest of maybe the teams that are contending for that fourth slot. Because it sounds like we're saying Creighton, Illini, and probably Blue Jay. Certainly Creighton and Illini, but maybe Blue Jay are probably a pretty solid three. And then you're looking at teams like a Michigan State, like a Michigan, even like Mizzou, who has been maybe a little bit lower than people would have expected this year. Certainly some unexpected results um, for this year. Do you think Missouri or Michigan? Do you think either of them have a chance to steal that fourth spot, or anyone else that I haven't mentioned. I don't want to sleep on Bowling Green, Minnesota, and Purdue.
That is fair. I would go as far as saying I would see Mizzou taking the fourth spot comfortably over Michigan State.
Okay.
And that is because I don't think these were official games. Illini happened to scrim Mizzou in I think it was either last week of October, might have been the first or second week of November, somewhere around them. And those games were at least within flag runner range. And since these weren't official, I don't really know what technical difficulties happened that they weren't posted, but they did happen. And think uh I think they have had a couple of losses at Trigger Beat when they came in with a short roster. Uh, I I think Mizzou is a team that will be the dark horse to definitely take the fourth bid from this qualifier.
Okay, so Missouri over Michigan State for that fourth spot. For the finals, would it be safe to say that Creighton Illini, maybe it is a Creighton Blue Jay, an inter-school final, but would it be safe to say that we're probably on a Creighton Illini collision course at some point or another?
I would tend to agree. I think in the region, Illini will be the closest team to Creighton. It will be really interesting to see. I think Creighton's dominance. Maybe I am biased. I just think beaters cause dominance because I'm a beater. But I think Creighton's beaters, Derek King and Ryan Cleary, have been
Yeah.
absolutely dominant when they come in together. If Illini can have an answer for those, it could very much be made a game. But I think it would be a safe bet to say Creighton Illini in the finals. Where I would say if Illini can get their hands on the flag runner, now we might have a really, really close game.
Yeah, of course. With those two top beaters of Creighton, though, it doesn't matter how good Illinois Seeker is. If Creighton's able to control the flag runner in their beater game, uh, they don't even have to catch. But because those have been some of the top two beaters in the country in the college game, um, even at because Kansas City and MLQ, and they've been solid beaters in MLQ as well. Um, so I think it'd be it's not impossible to see an Illini win. I think this is probably like a maybe a 70-30. I think Creighton is probably the favorite. Wouldn't be shocked to see Illini win, but Creighton's been in that top three with Texas State and Virginia all year. And personally, I don't see that changing now.
Absolutely. I think I would agree with your analysis.
Yeah. Ryan, anything that you want to add on the college game? If not, we're going to move on to the club scene.
No, I think I touched on everything I want to talk about.
All right, perfect. Let's move on to the club teams then. There is a ton of top 10 caliber teams in club at this regional. By my count and by my rankings that I make, I see 5, borderline 6 teams that would be top 10 caliber, and only 4 bids. So, but I don't want to say anything too fast. But who are some of the teams, Ojas, that you think are the top teams that will definitely be earning a bid? And we're going to say irrespective of what happened this past weekend. So Boom Train obviously just won York County. Let's not even consider that right now. Let's just figure out who's going to be our top 4 teams.
Can you remind me what teams are going to the qualifier for club? I don't have those pulled up.
Yes, that's okay. I've got Boom Train, Lobsters, Brew Cities, who I believe Brew Cities will be combined with Chicago United, like at York. Chaos, Dice, Ohio Apollos, Orlando is going to be there, Rain, Trainwreck, and Vermont. And you might know better than I will if Boom Train and Trainwreck are going to be attending. You don't have to share that, of course, if you don't want to, but it's listed as both are attending.
Yes, I can indeed share the confidential information that Boom Train and Trainwreck will be there.
Oh, good.
No, it's pretty open. Yeah, oh my God, this is a very stacked club qualifier.
Yeah.
Might I even say the most stacked club qualifier of this season at
I
least.
think that's accurate. I mean,
Yeah, if
Southwest is
I
pretty good, but Champaign is gonna be tight. Who do you think?
so if I had to take the top three in no order, I would say Boom Train, Dice, and Rain. Now we get to that fourth spot. That gets really
Ooh,
interesting because
yep.
we saw Chaos with those new additions pull off some blinders at York County. I think Lobsters is a good pull. I think Trainwreck will have some questions to answer. We'll finally get to see both Boom Train and Trainwreck at a tournament where they will also be challenged. So it'll be interesting to see. But yeah, that fourth spot will be the most competed spot probably for all qualifiers.
Yeah, I think it's hard to see a world where uh, any of Rain, Boom Train, and Dice don't get to the top three. Of course, Boom and Rain have the luxury of saying, "Hey, we already got our bids. We can kind of sit back if we want to." Rain might want to say we want to go for that number one spot because they want the top seed at nationals. Boom Train certainly has the luxury to say, if they want to, there's pride on the line, of course. But if Boom Train doesn't want to, go all out, they certainly don't have to. However, I do think you're right. Boom Train, Rain, Dice is probably an easy top three. Of course, we saw at Southwest Qualifier, all of these teams can take upsets. Boom Train lost games to Copperheads in the Space City Invitational in the lead up to the Southwest Qualifier. Rain lost to Copperheads. I believe also lost to Dice and to Heat at that tournament before turning around and making the semifinal. Dice went undefeated in groups and then lost to Rain in bracket play, which denied them a bid. So now they have to get the bid here. So any of those top three teams, kind of like we talked about ceilings and floors, I think any of them um, can sustain an upset. I think the club division's been so tight this year at the top, where in my opinion, there's 5 or 6 teams that are capable of winning the title this year, which is not something that we say every year. But given Boom Train, Dice, and Rain are here, those probably are the top three. And then yeah, it gets tough with teams like Lobsters, with Chaos, with Trainwreck, and even I'll throw Vermont in there. Any of those four
With Vermont
teams,
going to, oh my god,
Vermont is also going to be there. Maybe I missed that. Um, but if any of those four teams got the last slot, I wouldn't be surprised. Um, Lobsters have not played a lot of games, but when they have, they've looked good. Chaos, I think, is a team who, given the players that they were missing at York County, and some of the new additions that they're gaining with TCQC, some of those players, Chaos is a team that can absolutely be a top four team. I know they lost to the likes of DCQC and Boom Train at York, but it's absolutely in their power to win games here. Um, of course, Trainwreck, we have not seen Trainwreck in their true form yet, I don't think. Um, but who knows? People have been talking about the AB status of Boom Train and Trainwreck quite a bit this year. So it wouldn't shock me. And then Vermont has been a consistent enough team to just get by. And sometimes that's enough in these regional tournaments. Just do enough to get by, get to the top four, and that'll do it. Um, I think if I had to pick one team, in my opinion, I would say Chaos. I've been higher on Chaos than most this year, but I think Chaos with some new additions, and I think they're going to have a fire under them after York County. I'm going with Chaos to get that last slot. Ojas, who do you think is going to get it?
that is such a loaded question. Uh, I mean, it is tough to keep biases aside, but I do think Chaos on paper will have the strongest lineup set for taking that fourth bid. However, it is worth considering, given the number of club teams we have at this qualifier,
Mhm.
how pool play ends up being set up will also decide a lot of things.
Right.
Because if Chaos is dealt a tough hand in, pool play, if let's say they have to run into a Vermont and a Rain should be, a really tough game for them, and Vermont can, on their day, really go up against Chaos. If they end up being seated low there, that could really hinder their chances. On the other hand, if they cause an upset in pool play, now they're fast tracked to get that fourth one. So it'll be really interesting to see. What I think is worth mentioning is I think the only team that hasn't played to its complete strength so far this season is Boom Train. Because as you said, the AB status. Yes, we haven't seen like the what you could say the B side of the Boom Train wreck program. But I also don't think we have seen the true upside of Boom Train this year. So it'll
Sure.
be really interesting to see what we get to see, what can essentially be as a home tournament for Boom Train.
Yeah, I think it's a good point to mention. I know players like Matt and Noyes have missed quite a few games for Boom Train this year, and those are big time players for y'all. So, I wouldn't be shocked to see them come back to Boom Train and then boom just run over everyone. Um, and sure, yeah, maybe Trainwreck picks up enough of the pieces to where they can also steal a bid. I'm going with Chaos. If there was going to be a dark horse team, for me, it's Lobsters. I think Lobsters have got enough talent on the roster to where when we have such a compacted group at the top, I think Lobsters is a team that could steal something, that could cause a couple upsets and get through bracket play, and maybe win a 135, 120 type of game. Keep it close enough, get your seeker in play, and pull and win. Who do you see as a potential dark horse? I know that we've mentioned these middle four teams quite a bit, but is there anyone that you would say maybe is going to surprise people more than we're expecting? We've been saying Chaos and Trainwreck, but if there's any of those teams, or even any of the lower tier teams like a Chicago United or a Orlando or an Apollos, who's going to be the surprise team of this weekend?
I think Vermont is going to be my pick for this weekend because they have had what I call a lot of the OGs of quad ball. They've had a lot of experience under their belt, also mixed with some of the young blood. Really a big fan of Ian Skura. It'll be interesting to see if
Yeah,
they're able to make it. Also, a worthwhile matchup for noting is I think I remember watching Vermont and Chaos battle it out at the quarterfinals last year
yeah,
at nationals. It was definitely uh at at most a two-goal game. I don't remember who ended up being on top, but
Chaos won that,
did
but it
not
was close.
well, whoever did not end up getting that will definitely have a revenge, a sentiment to get that back. So that will
Sure.
be very interesting to see. I'd be really hoping for a Chaos Vermont rematch.
Yeah, that could be if that's a game, say, to decide who gets the last bid from club. That is going to be a certainly a must-watch game. All right, for either of you, anything else that you want to mention for Champaign County? Any last thoughts?
I, I think it's
No,
going
I'm
to be
all
a
good.
very interesting tournament. Everybody make sure to tune in to usquadball.com or not usquadball.com, I guess, US Quadball YouTube page. Everybody watch, comment, like, subscribe, everything.
Yep, all the things. That will be March 7th and March 8th. Howard County is this weekend, February 28th and March 1. I think those are the right days. But yes, lots of quad ball coming up. Thank you both for coming on again. This was a lot of fun, and obviously your knowledge of the area is definitely appreciated. So thank you both for coming on.
Thank you
Absolutely.
for having us.
Yeah, awesome. Thank you so much for watching Snapshot. Please be sure to subscribe if you have not already to keep up with all of the quad ball content. And a big thank you to Ryan and Ojas for coming on the show. It was very good to have an interview with people that are familiar with the region. But that's all I have for now. So this is Jackson signing off.